The Granblue Fantasy series has been going for a decade now, with the original title never released outside of Japan. A few years ago, the West did see Granblue Fantasy Versus, but I skipped this one considering it's a fighting game, which isn't really my thing. Granblue Fantasy Relink is the latest in the series. First announced in 2016, it's one of those titles that's seemingly been in development forever. After numerous delays and various developmental issues, Relink is finally here, but was it worth the wait? Before we get into the review, if you like this video, it would help me out a lot to hit that like button and sub for more RPG content coming soon. I'd also like to thank the publishers for their review code, and all footage that you see is from the PS5 version of the game. And let me know what you think about Granblue Fantasy Relink in the comments below. Alright, let's get into it. Granblue Fantasy Relink tells a story of Captain Gran, and he wears blue. It all makes sense now. Alternatively, you can choose a female protagonist who's called Jita, and if you're wondering, no, this doesn't change the name of the game to Jita Red Fantasy Relink. The captain and his group of Skyfarers are on a journey to find the mythical land of Estalucia, and this involves them travelling the skies on an airship, the Grand Cypher. Relink gave me some massive Skies of Arcadia vibes with the giant airships, the Skyfarers, and the floating lands. Anyway, after being attacked by a group of monsters, one of the crew members, Lyria, summons the primal dragon Bahamut. Turns out, like my 3-year-old, Bahamut doesn't do what he's told and attacks the ship instead, causing it to crash near the town of Folka. While undergoing repairs, the crew take on a mission to subdue another psycho primal beast, and this leads to Lyria being taken against her will by a mysterious woman named Lilith, and that sets Gran's journey into motion. If you're into a shorter RPG that doesn't waste any time, then this is your game. The story is told in chapters, each requiring you to set off from town to complete a main story mission, returning to town to upgrade your characters and take on side quests, then repeating. To be completely honest, I found the story to be average at best, and this is a combination of both the writing itself and that things just move so fast with a clear lack of traditional RPG story build-up. Some people may be into this waste no time or gameplay style, but to me, it did not feel like the grand journey present in most RPGs. And while the story may be on the short side, there is an impressive amount of world lore presented through Lyria's journal. There is a lot to read about key terms, characters, monsters, weapons, and pretty much everything you could imagine. And while this is really good, I would rather experience it rather than read about it. One of the strongest aspects of Granblue Fantasy Relink is its cast of characters. You start with several playable characters to take into battle, but once you obtain tickets, you can choose from a selection of characters to join your crew as new playable party members. Once in your party, you can learn about their past through a series of short narrations. These provide a character with stat increases and other benefits, so they are worth doing even if you don't care about the characters. Now, I'm in two minds about how these character backstories are presented to us. On one hand, it's good that we have the option to learn about everyone and that they are fully voiced, but the vast majority simply require you to watch a single static image with text appearing on the screen. Occasionally, there will be a short side mission, which is nice, but for the most part, it feels like a bite-sized version of something that could have been so much more grand, just like the main story. The Sky Realm of Granblue Fantasy Relink is beautifully presented. The character designs are all unique, with a couple of large detailed towns that feel very lively. Something that was a bit different is that the towns and dungeons have no minimap. There is a compass with objective markers, but I'm not really a fan of this. With that said, the lack of a map didn't really matter to me because I never needed one. Relink has a serious lack of exploration. Now, the towns themselves do have a few treasure chests to find, but this will only require running around them once. The dungeons for each mission, however, have next to nothing to do. They are highly linear corridors that require you to run from point A to point B, and this was very disappointing. There is the odd mission that is a little bit more open, and I would have liked every mission to follow this lead, but for the most part, I was very underwhelmed. Aside from taking on the main missions and the previously mentioned character quests/narration, there are side missions that revisit previous locations and some NPC side quests. Unfortunately, they are just mindless fetch or hunt quests, and honestly, there couldn't have been less effort put into them. The large majority of the optional content arrives during the post-game when Granblue Fantasy Relink turns into Granblue Monster Hunter. What I mean is that this is when things get grindy. There is a lengthy gameplay loop of taking on a quest, returning to town to upgrade your characters, then repeating for a very long time. Fortunately, the combat and the upgrade mechanics are really awesome, but just be aware of this if you're not into this kind of gameplay. Also worth mentioning is that Relink has an entirely optional online component allowing you to team up with 3 others to take on these missions. Again, this feels very Monster Hunter-y. Alright, let's get into the combat, which is my favourite thing about Relink. You can choose 4 characters to take into battle and control 1 member at a time. Interestingly, you cannot change characters mid-battle, which is an odd choice, but it's probably just to keep things consistent if you're going to play online. The core gameplay is what you'd expect from the genre. Your character has a basic attack and 4 equipped abilities that work on a cooldown. Avoiding attacks is a huge key to success in battle, and this can be done through dodging and blocking. I really liked how each character has 3 dodge animations that can be strung together. After that, they'll pause for a moment, meaning that you'll need to manage your dodges carefully, else your character will be vulnerable for a short time. Blocking works a little bit different to what you'd expect, as you can hold block to negate all damage of most attacks, not just reduce it. However, your blocking ability will eventually be broken, but if you use it sparingly, you won't have much of an issue here. While most of the time you'll be dealing damage through regular attacks and abilities, the real damage can be done through unleashing Skybound arts. When this gauge is full, you can unleash a devastating attack on your enemies. Furthermore, if multiple characters use their Skybound arts together, a chain burst will occur for even more damage. What I love about this combat is that each character plays so differently, and experimenting with all their different playstyles was a lot of fun. Whenever I got a new character, I chose them straight away to see how they'd play. Gran, for instance, who you have to have in your party of 4, is all about building his arts level through regular attacks, then unleashing an art for major damage. Io, on the other hand, is able to build up a charge to unleash a devastating ranged attack, and this reminds me a lot of the mages in Dragon's Dogma. This combat works so well because each character's playstyle will only take about 10 or 20 minutes to learn, but quite longer if you want to master it and customize it to its true potential. I eventually decided on my favourite 4 and then rotated through them from mission to mission to keep things fresh. I would love to know who your main party was, so let me know in the comments below. Granblue Fantasy Relink offers quite a lot in the way of customizing your characters, which is quite impressive considering how many there are. Each character has their own offensive and defensive skill trees, as well as unique weapons that can be enhanced for permanent stat increases. Progressing through these trees will consume MSP points, which are shared between all party members, which is one of the reasons why I chose to only focus on 4 characters after trying them all out. I mentioned before that every character plays differently. Well, your options in battle are even greater when you factor in battle abilities. Each character learns more of these as they progress through their respective skill trees, and these abilities fall under offensive, defensive support, and healing. Gran, for instance, can be built as a healing support character or an offensive powerhouse based on the 4 abilities that he equips. This also means that you don't need to have a dedicated healer, as equipping multiple characters with a single healing ability will also be viable. While building up my characters was a lot of fun, the truth is that the real magic can only be done in the post-game. The main game feels like a massive gameplay tutorial, with the post-game offering so much more, not only in terms of quests, but also upgrade opportunities. Take sigils for example. These can be equipped to characters for additional passive buffs. They can also be upgraded, but during the main game it was way too expensive to do so. I mean, I barely had enough money to upgrade a few weapons. Personally, I'm not really a fan of RPGs that hold so much back prior to the credits rolling, but hey, some people love this. Granblue Fantasy Relink has a lot going for it, and after all this time, I'm glad it is finally here to play. The first thing I noticed is that it is beautifully presented. I really dig the art style. But the very best thing about Relink is its combat. The controls feel great, and the variety provided by the huge range of characters never makes these battles feel stale. Good thing too, because I never really cared for the fast-paced story. While it did have its moments, it wasn't particularly engaging. The linear levels and lack of exploration also left a lot to be desired. Something that I was impressed with though is the amount of things that you can do to build and customize your characters. However, I wasn't a fan of most of it being locked before the post-game, but that's just me. Granblue Fantasy Relink is a game that some people will absolutely love, and I can totally see why, as it has some great qualities. There's just some things about it that didn't quite hit with me. What did you think of Granblue Fantasy Relink? Do you agree with what I said? Let me know in the comments below. This was Hellfire RPGs, thanks for watching. If you liked this review, hit that like button and sub for more RPG content coming soon. You can also hit that super thanks if you'd like to support the channel. See you next time.